Cool.
Craig, can take us back to your early life. What moments or experiences shaped your vision of masculinity or fatherhood? Just
Mm.
tell us who's Craig Wilkinson, where is he from, and just let's go from there.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, I was raised in a family of four, born and bred in South Africa, but we moved around a lot. I lived in New Zealand for a while, lived in Botswana for a while, finished my schooling in Botswana, and I had a very difficult father relationship. I had a younger brother who committed suicide, who took his own life at the age of 21, which was absolutely devastating. Went on to become a father, and I think that for me was the biggest turning point in my life. I had a son and a daughter, and my daughter, the one experience I had, she had an operation on her heart, and when we went to surgery, I asked the doctor if I could take her into the surgery. She was 2.5 years old, and he kindly let me, and she fell asleep in my arms. I gave her over to the surgeon, left the theater. When she came around, I was there. And a month later, I overheard her saying to one of my friends, she said, my heart was broken, but she said, but my daddy fixed it. And it was just the most profound experience because I saw myself through her eyes and I saw how much I meant to her. And she saw me as this hero, as this man who could fix anything or fixed her heart. And I realized then that I had some work to do, that was I this father? And I realized then that none of us as men grow up whole. The journey from boy to man is a tough one. The pressures on man are tough, on boys, don't cry, all these different things we hear about what it means to be a man. And, so we arrive at adulthood wounded with some funny ideas about what it means to be a man. And that just started me on the journey of looking in the mirror and saying, am I the man she needs me to be, my daughter? And in some ways I was, in other ways I wasn't. And I realized I'm work in progress. And so that started the journey of pushing into what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a father?
Excellent. I love that you channel us along that experience you've had. I mean, most people grow up without fathers and they try to navigate the whole world with themselves with that mentality
Right.
that I can figure it out, I can figure it out myself. I have
Mm.
all the wisdom. But when you're out there in the real world, it doesn't work that way, man. You,
No,
you have to
no.
go through some pages and you have to put
Mm.
some systems in place to actually help you navigate towards this devious planets we're in. What inspired you to start Father and Nation? Was the personal turning point that led you to this mission?
Well, I began, as a father myself. And if you look at South Africa, we are one of the most unfathered nations in the world. And so I became a single father. I went through a divorce. I was a single dad. My kids came to stay with me. And I just saw the devastation caused by fatherlessness. Both boys and girls need fathers. We need them. Young boys look to older men to teach them what it means to be a man. You cannot teach yourself. It's like trying to teach yourself how to drive. You can't. You need someone who knows how to drive to teach you. And so, South Africa, we've got the highest level of gender-based violence in the world. We've got our murder rate is through the roof. We've got, 27,000 people murdered last year in South Africa. It's insane. And a lot of that's got to do with our broken past, but a lot of it's also got to do with a lack of present, engaged fathers teaching and disciplining young boys. So I'm firmly of the belief that if we can heal men, we can heal our nation. If we can teach men how to be good men, we can heal South Africa. And so that's what motivated me to start it, because we need to refather our nation.
I like that you present that, a lot. There's a story I was listening to by my favorite podcaster, um, Daniel the Black Pen.
Mhm.
So he goes by, telling a story of a father, and he had two sons. So the first son, was very successful. So he's asked, why are you so successful? Why are you in this? Why are you so powerful in your industry? Why did you get so far ahead? In life. And the son replied and said, my father was an alcoholic. So the second son was asked the same question. but now in a different context because why you that is being asked, why are you such an alcoholic? Why are you such a drug user? Why are you this? Why are you robbing banks? And the son replied, my father was an alcoholic. So
Yeah.
I think the missing piece is that, or the moral of the story is that is how you view the situation, how you view
Mm, mm.
the situation and the scenario that's going. So I think yeah, your mission it's very inspiring and it's going to change a lot of lives. Um, I'm just so inspired by your vision and stuff like that. So I want to ask the question is what does a father and nation look like to you, and how do you define healthy masculinity in today's world?
Well, we're a non-profit organization. We're blessed to have a beautiful team of men out there in the field. We've got men living in Alexander, in Polokwane, in all over the place. Beautiful men that are role models, that are mentors, and that are training younger boys and younger men to be good men. True masculine, first we've got to say masculinity is a beautiful thing. Men are not trash. Masculinity is not trash. No boy's born an abuser. This is where something goes wrong. So masculinity is a beautiful gift to humanity. We got to understand that. Never see ourselves as trash. Never see ourselves as a bad thing in the world. We're a good thing in the world. But true masculinity is using your strength for good. Understanding that we have strength, we have testosterone, we have drivers, we have physical strength, etc. But that's a sacred responsibility to use for good. You know, uh, Lange if every man used his strength well, we'd live in paradise. We wouldn't need a police force. So for every man, I think realize that you have strength and power, not just physical, emotional, verbal, academic. You've got strength. Grow your strengths, become more powerful, become more dangerous, and then use your strength for good. Know your strength, grow your strength, and use it for good. And for me, that's one of the fundamental aspects of masculinity. Secondly, take responsibility. Take responsibility. Never blame, never complain, never be lazy. Just step up and take responsibility for your life and to look after the people around you. I think thirdly, one has to judge yourself not by your image, by the woman on your arm, by your clothing. Judge yourself by your character. Are you a man of your word? Do you have a set of principles? I wrote a booklet called The Six Pack of Masculine Virtues. And for me, the six pack, it's nice to have one on the stomach. Maybe it's nice to drink a six pack every now and again, but the most important one is inside. What are your characters? What are your virtues? How do you live and pitch up your life? And I think pressing on the final thing is, are you making the world a better place? Are your brothers better brothers because you're in their life? Is your girlfriend or wife a better woman because you're in their life? Is South Africa a better nation because is your community better? Are you improving the world or are you taking from it? So these are some of the qualities of what makes a man a good man.
Love that I love that you spoke about dealing with your strengths. That's what Gary V speaks a lot about, knowing your strengths.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
instance, maybe someone who's in business and is studying this podcast, studying this using these cameras whatsoever, but he doesn't know how to edit. You cannot do everything, you cannot be a top editor at the same time becoming a good, an excellent, interviewer or a great person who's going to bring top guests on your show. So Gary Vee just says, no, you know what? Take what you're good at and try to maximize your potential on that certain aspect and try to be,
Yeah.
one of the best, in
Absolutely.
the industry. So you speak often about, fatherlessness being the rock of many societal problems. Can you unpack that for us, in a bit, in a more simplified context?
Well, quite simply, young boys look to older men to model masculinity to them. And if they don't have a father or they don't have older role models, where do they look? They look to their peers, they look to the gangster on the street corner, they look to media, and they grow up unfathered. And unfathered boys and girls are wounded boys and girls, and wounded people become people who wound. So this whole cycle continues. Um, if a young boy sees an uncle beating his wife, he's going to think, well, that's what men do. I'm going to do the same. And so, but if you have a present, engaged father who loves, who cares, who disciplines, and who's a good man, modeling good masculinity, that boy's going to grow up healthy and he's going to treat women well and he's going to take responsibility. So fathers play a massive role in both a boy's life and a girl's life. And in the absence of that, there's woundedness and there's damage and there's a lack of understanding of masculinity. And that leads to the next generation also misbehaving and doing things that are not truly masculine. So fathers are crucially important.
I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of hassles or barriers while you're trying to create this organization. Like, what were some of the toughest challenges you faced in trying to change the narrative around masculinity in South Africa, for example?
Well, a lot of men. South Africa is a very damaged nation. We have a lot of unfathered men, and we have a big rate of unemployment, and we have a high degree of poverty. And if you put all those things together, it creates a very difficult scenario. And so I find that most men, regardless of their background, regardless of whether they're employed, unemployed, rich or poor, whatever their cultural background is, most men want to be good men. There's a hunger to be a good man, but there's also a hunger in terms of, what does that mean? So I think there's a lot of confusion about masculinity. I think there's a lot of negativity around it. And I think a lot of this comes from the backlash to abuse. A lot of this comes from women as well, women who hate men now because men have let them down. And so you have a narrative in society that men are trash, that men are toxic, that everything is to be blamed on the patriarchy. And I think these are misconceptions that we need to plow through. We also have media that gives the wrong messages to men. Media says to men, the more sexual partners you have, the more of a man you are, the more power, the more money. Big boys don't cry. These are wrong messages that we have to undo. And I think fighting against those misconceptions. I think also men are taught not to be vulnerable, not to cry. This has been a challenge. Because when we're not able to share our struggles, we carry them. And when we carry them, we break. It turns to violence against others or ourselves or abuse of substance. So teaching men that vulnerability is actually a strength, that's seen some powerful results.
Thank you so much for explaining such a very comprehensive, situation that we currently face as people, that, everyone has to be strong whilst, and also the media, coming up with their stories of, are you a red pill, or are you a blue pill? Yeah, that's so much noise, so much TikTok information, so much Instagram information that you get, fed as a younger person, just looking up to these models for, high follow, yeah, those people with high following on Instagram, and you get to get this information that is so super biased.
Correct.
How do you deal with resistance, especially from men who feel threatened or misunderstood by the conversation around gender-based violence and masculinity?
You show them love, man. You show them love and you tell the truth. For me, particularly as a Christian man, the two most powerful weapons in the world are love and truth. And you need them to operate together. If you just show love, but no truth, it's a bit wishy-washy. You're enabling. If you just show truth without love, it can be very harsh. But if you come to men and say, brother, I really love you. I affirm you. I validate you. I affirm you. But here's the thing: as men, we need to step up and do this. Men respond to that. Men also respond very well when you call out the champion in them. If you come and you want to beat a man on the head and say you're trash, you've lost that man. You've lost that man. But if you come and say, brother, in your DNA is a rich heritage of heroism. You're designed to be a champion, a warrior for good. Man, men come alive. They like that. So you call out the champion in them. And you treat them with love and respect, but you speak the truth. And this does wonders with men.
Do you think, in terms of me just conversating with you. We're not taught at school to have reasonable conversations, how to speak elegantly with a superior or a peer. Just the way the conversations are held. We're not taught to build ourselves, to make another person or friend grow and be happy for him in that situation or another. Just for an example, just having a conversation with your friend and you're just talking, yo, you're not doing that in the right manner. Try and
Yeah.
do this. Or it's the environment you grow up in, maybe without any fathers. You tend to not have a reasonable or just a, how can I put this, an educational conversation with your peer in a sense that will make him grow in the next few years to come. So
Very much so.
that's
You
a
know,
bit lacking.
the way men relate, we don't go deep. We talk about soccer, we talk about girls, we talk about sport. You know, we don't have those real conversations. You know, we don't say, "Hey, brother, how are you doing? How are you really doing?" You know, they say the biggest lie that men say is, "I'm fine," when they're not. You know, "Hey, dude, I'm good, man. I'm good." You know, how you? We don't get real with each other, and I think we need to learn how to do that. Get real. You know, not with everybody necessarily, but have a band of brothers, a group of men around you who you can call them out when they're misbehaving, but you can also say, "Hey, dude, man, I really respect and admire what you're doing there. It's wonderful." You know, I can say, Langalitle, man, you know what you're doing with this podcast is really it's beautiful because you're building a band, a tribe around you of advisors and older, wiser mentors, and that's a beautiful thing to do. You know, you're saying, let's tap into the wisdom of those who've gone before, and that's a very admirable thing to do. You know, and so we don't affirm each other and validate each other. So brothers need to do four things. We need to honor each other for the good, for the positive, for the powerful that we see in each other. We need to be vulnerable with each other, be honest about the stuff we're going through. We need to call each other out, sharpen each other so that we don't get out of line. And we need to stand with each other and support each other. You know, if brothers did that, man, we would we'd build a great nation because brothers would help each other be the best they can be. And you're right, we need to have those conversations because we're not naturally doing that as men.
What are some books that change your personal life and business perspective?
I love reading, man. I read extensively. I think the Bible, number one for me. Number two, Wild at Heart is a brilliant book. The author is John Eldridge. Just talks about the wildness of the man's heart, and what drives men. There's a beautiful business book, also personal development book, written many years back by a guy called Stephen Covey. It's called the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Brilliant book, talking about what are the things that people do that makes them effective and successful. So I mean that's another powerful book I would highly recommend.
Many young men grow up without father figures. We've spoken about that. How can they begin to lead themselves when there's no example to follow?
I think that's a very good question. I think what young men need to do is become very intentional about finding good mentors. You know, you've mentioned some podcasts that you watch. You've asked me about books. So we're living in a world where access to information is wild. It's free. So every young man needs to be very intentional about finding the right set of friends, because you hang around with the wrong friends, they're going to lead you down the wrong path. Find friends that are good friends, good people, that are inspiring, that are going somewhere, and hang out with them. Number two, start an intentional journey of seeking out good mentors, and you don't even have to meet them. You can watch the podcast, the YouTube clip, read the books, and then find men. There are good men to be found in the community. Could be an uncle, a grandfather, and just really spend time with them, saying, how can I get this right? It just requires an intentionality, and it's very, very possible to do because we can't teach ourselves. And if we hang out with the wrong people or look to the wrong mentors, we're going to learn all the wrong stuff.
My one of my mentors I recently got engaged so much on YouTube is Ty Lopez. quite funny guy, but he speaks about the rule of the 33%. The rule of the
Right.
33% says you must hang around with 33% of the time, you must hang around with people that are 20 years ahead of you, 15 to 20 years ahead, plus years ahead of you. And then 33% you should hang around with your peers, people that can challenge you, and then you can share advice and then you can listen from too. And then another 33% you should hang around with people you can just teach, just tell them, this is
Fantastic.
wrong, this is what I've learned,
I
and just to
like that.
build some confidence with your
I
life so
like
that
that. Yeah.
I think it'll be fine.
Excellent.
And two last questions. Advice you have for entrepreneurs who want to turn, their pain into purpose, right? To
Mm.
change that, secretary mindset that, oh, no, my life isn't going the way I've planned it to go, and just
Yeah.
just share with the audience here. Sure.
Well, I think the principle there is that, in your early childhood years, you do not hold the pen that writes your life story. It's in the hand of your parents, your society. But there comes a time when that pen is in your hand. And that's a time when you take full responsibility. And you say, what, if I'm going to build a life, I need to know where I'm going, know what I want. I need to let go of the things that hold me back, like bitterness and anger and blame. I need to step up and take full responsibility. And I need to become very intentional about building the life that I want to live. One of the most disempowering mentalities we can have is that entitlement mindset or a mindset of blame. If you're entitled, in other words, you're waiting for it to happen, it's not going to happen. You've got to make it happen. And if you blame, you're giving your power away to somebody else. If I say that Langelisse makes me angry, I'm giving you power to make me angry. But if you say, what, no matter what he does, I'm going to take control of my own life. So once you get that mindset of just letting go of the things that you cannot control, focusing on what you really want to achieve, and then find a plan, and then seek out all the strategies, the resources, the people that are going to help you to fulfill your plan. You can turn your life around. The pen is in your hands. You've got to realize it. Start writing, and you might write a few things that you don't like and crumple and throw them away, but at least you're doing the writing. You're not waiting for it to happen to you.
Final last question. What legacy are you trying to achieve with Father and Nation? What do you hope to achieve in the future? What are the next projects? What are the goals? And just please hit us from there, and then give yourself, okay, if you would go back, in the next few years back and just traveling, back in time, what advice would you give back to your 18-year-old self if the time is now, but you're just traveling back in 2020, in 2025?
Well, I mean, in terms of the legacy of Father Nation, we want to start a movement. We literally want to change the culture of South Africa, and teach and inspire young boys what positive, healthy masculinity is. Not to be ashamed of being a man, not to think you're trash, but to be proud of being a man and to grow your strengths, but to be a good man, to use your strength for good, to make the world a better place. And we want that to become an organic movement where people in parliament are talking about the six pack of masculine virtues, where people in parastatals, in universities, in colleges are talking about what it means to be a good man, and we understand what it means to be a good man. It's not about how many women you have. It's not about how big you are strong. It's about what difference are you making in the world. So that's the legacy we want to leave. We're doing a lot of work in townships around the country. Alexander, we got a big program, Khayelitsha in the Cape, just working with men in dialogue, bringing healing and restoration, and this whole six pack of how do we become excellent men. In terms of advice I give my 18-year-old self, man, I would say a number of things. We've covered a few. I would say develop a vision for your life. What do you want? Become purpose-driven and vision-driven, because once you do that, you know how to live your life. If you've got no purpose and no vision, every single day you just live. What default? Someone invites you to a party, you go to a party. Someone says, have a drink, you have a drink. It's not guiding your life. If you're an athlete, your vision is to win the Olympics. That determines your behavior today. Means I'm going to go to sleep early. I'm going to eat well. I'm going to get up and train and exercise. So have a purpose and a vision. Number two, find mentors. We've talked about that. look beyond your circle. Find the right kind of inspiring mentors that you can really pursue. And I think then become intentional. Live intentionally. Don't live just by default. Like like a leaf on the wind. Wherever the wind takes you. No. So I want to go there. The wind's blowing that way. I'm going to fight against the wind. I think that's the advice I would give.
Thank you so much, Craig. It was lovely speaking to you, and I wish you continued success in your organization. I think it's doing an incredible job, in South Africa, and I hope you're blessed.
Great to chat to you, man. Appreciate it. And same back to you. All the very best in your career, your life, your relationship, your love. May God shine his light on you.